Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the last segment of today's show, the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. It should be a good one, but before I forget, I do want to remind you guys that if you do feel so inclined to leave a tip or donation at the link gsmc.cloud, a huge support to both me, my fellow podcasters, and the network. Sorry I forgot about it earlier in the show, but just want to remind you yet again. Now, to close out the show, we have another fantastic preview of a team in the Euros. The host nation, a German team looking to get back to that level we saw at the 2014 World Cup. Now, I'm telling you guys this right now. This team is one to beware of because they definitely have the players to go very far in this tournament. They definitely have the players you might want in your Euros fantasy squad. It's just a matter of their identity. If they can get it all together, they can definitely have the nous to go as far as the finals and maybe even win it. The first host nation to win it since France actually did in 1984. So without further ado, let's go in and preview Germany in terms of their fantasy implications. Now, Germany is definitely one of the most talented teams on paper. Whether or not it translates onto the actual pitch is the major question here. But looking at their fantasy stats and their budgets, I think that Germany is a very appealing team, especially in the group stages. They're in a group that shouldn't necessarily bother them that much. Obviously, it's very even between teams such as Scotland, Hungary, and Switzerland that kind of sit close to Germany in terms of Euro rankings. But I do think that Germany will succeed and potentially go very far in this tournament. Let's start off with one of the more controversial parts of this Germany team right now, their defense. There's just so many questions about who will lead this defensive line. Obviously, Antonio Rudiger is probably the first name in that defense that can slot in immediately. But I want to look at, in terms of fantasy, more sleeper picks, more guys who haven't necessarily gotten the respect they ultimately deserved. Let's start off with a guy who only made his Germany debut a couple of months ago in a left-back, Maximilian Mittelstadt, the 27-year-old left back out of VfB Stuttgart. And that just goes to show that right now, Germany have so many players. The problem with Germany was that maybe they were a bit too Bayern-centric, as Bayern has dominated domestic German football over the years. And so many Bayern players were integrated into that squad that maybe you just need that fresh juice from different German teams to come into the squad and really help it gain relevancy yet again, and Maximilian Mittelstadt will be a huge part of that. I'm keeping my eye on this guy. He's waited for such a long time to make his debut for Germany. Going to be one of the most versatile attacking left backs in Julian Nagelsmann's system. He wants to get the fullbacks up the pitch. Obviously, he has a fantastic cross for the football. His first ever goal for Germany was a cracker of a goal from outside the box in a friendly win over the Netherlands, who we'll preview tomorrow in terms of Euros. But still, Maximilian Mittelstadt right now is one of the more appealing left backs if you want to take a flyer on a guy, at least in the group stages, who can offer you that attacking from the defender positions. Maximilian Mittelstadt might be the guy. In terms of center back pairings, it's just a matter of who's going to slot in next to Antonio Rudiger, and the man to fill those shoes might be Jonathan Tah. He is a very inexpensive option, only $4.5 million. What I like about Jonathan Tah is that he has been criticized over the years for not being the fastest center back, but he's very, very physical, very, very good aerially. He's going to win a lot of headers, win a lot of balls. He's going to be vital in terms of interceptions for them, so he's not necessarily doing the pretty work. He's doing the dirty work back there for Germany. Look for him to partner very well with Antonio Rudiger, who certainly adds that level of pace to the Germany backline. So they're good counteracting and foils for each other in terms of that Germany backline. But of the two, Jonathan Tah might be the guy you want if you want a guy who's more known for his ball recoveries and not necessarily going forward, unlike Maximilian Mittelstadt. Now we get into the exciting portion. The midfield for Germany. One of the most talented midfields in world football. On paper, remember, on paper again, whether it all works together is the mystery. Julian Nagelsmann, obviously wanting to bring in a lot of talent in that midfield, has to kind of figure out what to do with it, because this is the most talented the German midfield has been in years. And so the question of who to specifically roster for your Euros fantasy squad is a tough one. But let's start out with one of the best players in the world right now in Florian Wirtz, the young 20-year-old. Obviously, it's been a long time coming for this dude. He feels so old, but he's still so young, mainly due to the fact that he was injured with an ACL tear out for 2 seasons ago. Winning the Bundesliga in an unbeaten campaign with Bayer Leverkusen. Fantastic season. He's going to be a top 10 Ballon d'Or candidate, in my humble opinion. He's just so creative. He's seen scoring and contributing to 17 goals in the Bundesliga. Such a valuable player. It's going to have to be one of those guys who may have to take the back seat and let other guys around him kind of do their thing and pull the strings in the midfield. But look for Florian Wirtz to be very creative. I think he could have a lot of assists, if not goals. Had a fantastic long-range shot in a friendly against France a couple months ago. So look for Florian Wirtz to potentially be one of the golden boys, these golden young players in this tournament as the tournament progresses and should Germany go far. The guy next to him, a guy he wants to spend his entire career with, in his humble opinion, Jamal Musiala, isn't bad either. This is a guy who has just been in so many Germany teams that really don't know what to do with him. He has been one of the most fun players to watch in world football, but sadly, I think the fact that Germany has never had a player quite like Jamal Musiala and his level of dribbling, because they never are really known for a dribbling player who can be as creative as Jamal Musiala. They're known for their more direct nature from their midfield, and so Jamal Musiala slotting into this midfield, creating something out of nothing and being one of the best players for Germany at these past couple of tournaments really speaks to the level of talent that Germany has and just has to figure out how to use. But Jamal Musiala, 8.5 million euros, look for him to partner with Florian Wirtz very well. They're just going to be so dynamic. I don't necessarily know how opposing defenses are going to play them. They're such a hard combination. But then you have an older guy in Toni Kroos who comes back into the squad, and his not necessarily creativity in terms of his dribbling skill. He's definitely not known for Toni Kroos. But just his vision and his footballing IQ really helps this Germany squad. Look for him to have a bucket load of assists from a deeper lying, more defensive midfield position. And him and Robert Andrich are going to be a very interesting duo, kind of at the baseline of Germany's midfield. To kind of ping the ball about, get these dynamic, more out wide midfield duos to get space and deliver balls into the box for a very, very debatable striker situation for Germany. You have a guy in Niklas Füllkrug who has proven himself over these past couple of years as one of the better striker options for Germany. Obviously, it's been a long time coming for him in terms of his international journey, being a guy who was playing in the Zwei Bundesliga and now being a Champions League finalist. What a career arc for Niklas Füllkrug, but he has just been a fantastic, whether as a starting striker or as an impact sub off the bench in other tournaments, can really be a spark plug for a German squad who might be lacking in terms of goal production in latter stages of the tournament. He can definitely step up. And then you have a guy in Kai Havertz who, while his talent has definitely been in luck as he has moved from Bayer Leverkusen to Chelsea to Arsenal, I just think that he needs a more stable mindset. I think that he can be very interesting this tournament as a false nine, as his movement on and off the ball can be very impactful for a Germany squad who definitely wants to have that confusing element to how they play. But I still think that the question is, do you want someone who's more of a goal-scoring threat, more known for their fantastic aerial ability, or do you want a guy who can definitely help in terms of movement? I think Kai Havertz is the better player defensively if you want a quote-unquote false nine striker option who can get you ball recoveries, is going to impact the squad defensively. But in terms of a pure goal-scoring threat, then Niklas Füllkrug is your man. Now, in terms of dark horses, I think that another striker for Germany, a much younger striker making his international squad debut, can be very interesting off the bench. Maximilian Bayer, I think, can definitely be a guy that a lot of people might look at, especially in the group stages, should he get a couple of minutes. But the German striker squad is such a difficult one to pan out. Now, in terms of this Germany squad, like I said before, they definitely have the players. They definitely have the potential you want in a Euros fantasy squad. They have the youth, they have the experience, they have the creativity, they have the player. The problem is, A, their mentality, and B, the fact that there really isn't a goal-scoring threat outside of Niklas Füllkrug in this squad. Can guys like Florian Wirtz and Jamal Musiala create something out of nothing? Obviously, we know they have some goals in them. Can guys like Maximilian Mittelstadt in their back line really help their attack from the fullbacking position? And can most importantly, a guy like Kai Havertz, should he be trusted to start with Julian Nagelsmann, really take off and help this Germany team kind of be a very hard team to play against due to their confusing nature of how these different players move? I think the pressure of how these teams perform, especially in terms of fantasy, is Julian Nagelsmann. Can he get this team right? Can he solve the pieces of the German puzzle and finally crack the code and get them out of the group stages and deep into the tournament? I think this can be one of the most exciting teams in the tournament in terms of their production. They can also be one of the most confusing and kind of really angering teams because of the fact they have so much talent and they might not produce. But that will just about do it for today's edition of the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. I really loved these past two segments that I shared with you guys. Please follow, like, and subscribe to this show. We are going to be back tomorrow with even more Euros action, more Stanley Cup and NBA action. Should be a fantastic show tomorrow. I have been Chris Shepard. Thank you guys yet again for tuning in. I can't wait to close out the week with you guys with another great show. This has been the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast.